Hi, this is Dr. Mike Licona, and every once in a while, I get to, once a year, I get to teach 2 graduate level courses for our Master of Arts in Christian Apologetics. And some students are just kind of special, more special than others. And I just want to, I've asked 2 of those that I've had over the years, if they would allow me to interview them to talk about themselves and what they're doing with apologetics and how they got involved in it. And so they agreed. And so I want to invite them. And so first we have Annie Crawford, and then we also have Annie Nardoni. And these are just 2 just real special women, and they're just fantastic students, two of amongst my favorite students that I've had since being a professor at Houston Christian University for, I think I've done it for 12 years now. So anyway, Annie and Annie, welcome.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Mike.
Nice to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. Hey, so I want to ask you both, and let's start with you, Annie Crawford. What got your interest in Christian apologetics?
Well, personally, I've always been interested in apologetics, as I think someone who has always been engaged in the life of the mind, a reader, a thinker, that, the Christian faith needs to be a faith and a worldview that's examined. And so apologetics were personally important for me in high school and college and Bible school. But in terms of later in life, as an adult, and the HCU apologetics program, was actually the article on women in apologetics that my friend Andrea Dilley wrote for Christianity Today. And she told me about the program, and she was sitting with me at coffee, and she said, "Annie, you are always thinking and reading and learning and self-educating. You should go do this degree and dive in deep and invest in those interests that you have." So it was really that article that alerted me to the program, and my friend's encouragement that gave me the courage to jump into a full-time program and do that harder, disciplined work.
Awesome. How about you, Annie Nardoni?
It probably started when I was in the C.S. Lewis Institute's Fellows Program. And I completed year 1. I was hooked. Completed year 2. And in that program, one of the units that you study every month is apologetics. And I loved it. And I was so sad. I got into year 2, finished that, and I thought, now what do I do? Certainly, God didn't give me this experience, this hunger for more reading and more research to let me just go fly. So we were talking, Mike, you and I, because we have some common history.
Yeah, we go way back.
We go way, way back. And we were just talking about, hey, what are you doing in life? And hey, what's your life doing? And I brought up the C.S. Lewis Institute and the Fellows Program that I just finished. And I said, I don't know what to do. I have all these books and I want to keep reading. And you encouraged me to apply at HCU, formerly HBU. And I apologize for saying the wrong initials because I'll probably mess up. I applied.
Back then it was Happening Baptist University, and now it's Happening Christian
Baptist.
University.
Yes. Actually, I think it was Dr. Ordway and Dr. Ward had an introductory hour where you could ask questions about the courses. They sent out the titles of the courses, and I saw the topics, the things that we would be reading and researching. And I thought, this is like the world's best book club, with everything has been thoroughly researched, and I get to write about it. What's to lose? So I applied and I got in, and I was blown away by the caliber of the professors there, and So anyhow, and graduated in
Your
2000.
interest to get involved in the C.S. Lewis Institute? Like, were you interested? Were you just fascinated with C.S. Lewis? Did you experience doubts about the truth of Christianity? What led you to get involved in that?
I've always loved C.S. Lewis from way back, casual reading. But I realized that I have always been a Christian. Sometimes I've floundered and flopped, but I've never completely walked away from the faith. So I've always been a Christian, but if someone would walk up to me and say, "Why are you Christian?" I really didn't have a great answer because I hadn't left and I hadn't walked out on God. He was always a part of my life to some degree. And I thought, man, if I don't have an answer, what am I going to tell my kids? What am I going to tell my friends? What am I going to tell my family? If they have hard questions, I needed answers. So that's why I started the C.S. Lewis Institute program with the fellows. And the more I read, the more I studied. And surprisingly, you don't read a lot of C.S. Lewis in the C.S. Lewis Institute. They warned us of that. They said, you're going to read some, but you're also going to read all of the world's great apologetics. You're going to read devotionals. You're going to read the Bible. You're going to do a huge scope of things. C.S. Lewis is going to come in here and there, but it's not like you're reading a book of his a month. And I thought, well, I can still read on my own, so that's fine. So I read so many good books, of which started my shelves, which have now filled my house. Thanks to HCU and C.S. Lewis Institute, I have, Annie, you probably have the same issue. So many books. But
I remember seeing a photograph of Annie Crawford on her Facebook page where she just kind of like this and she's got all these books there. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. So now at HCU, you can go one of two tracks. You can go cultural apologetics or you can go philosophical apologetics. I don't know why they call it philosophical apologetics because there's also biblical stuff in there. You know, that's the kind of stuff that I teach, and that's considered to be on the philosophical side. Did you both do the cultural apologetics? Okay. So, but you wish you had done the philosophical. Just teasing. I know you're both doing the cultural apologetics now. We'll get into that. But so Annie Crawford, what did you do? I mean, you're fairly close to Houston. Not terribly close, but you live in Austin. And with the program, the MA in Christian Apologetics at HCU, it can be completed on campus or it can be completed at a distance. We have many distance students, or a hybrid of it. What did you do?
Yeah, I ended up in the online program because Austin to Houston is 3 hours away, but it really was perfect for me because, of course, as incarnate creatures, we are made to have real relationship in person. That's the ideal. That's the best. But, realistically, it's not always possible. And it encouraged me that correspondence scholarship has been around for a long time. In the Middle Ages, they wrote long, letters to one another. And so the online program allowed me to dive into, graduate scholarship while still homeschooling my girls and still having the time to continue being invested in my community here, while also, continuing my education. And then the benefit of being in Texas, for anyone who's in Texas and maybe interested, is, I can jump down there for a weekend. Dr. Ward or Dr. Lacona is in town in Houston, and I can scoot down there and supplement the online education with those, once a year, twice a year occasions for seeing people face to face. And so the program was really perfect for me. I mean, realistically, most of us can't move somewhere else for the education. And so I have been really blessed and encouraged by the quality of the online program. That's something that impressed me. I was skeptical, but all of the professors there worked so hard to make high quality education possible through that remote learning. And we're very eager to connect in person whenever possible. So went the online route and very thankful for it. It worked out really well.
Yeah, you and I got to connect just a few months ago in Houston. They flew me down for a conference there. You were there. You were one of the speakers. And we got to meet in person for the first time. And there were a bunch of students at dinner. And I came, sat with you, and we chatted for a while. And boy, it was just neat. You're just as impressive in person as you were online. Well, even more so. So,
and you're taller in person than you are online.
Well, Annie Nardoni, I know that you did the whole thing at a distance because you were in Virginia for a while, and then you were moved to Florida. So, how did you feel that the distance learning worked for you?
It worked out great for me. I appreciate the fact that I didn't have to leave for 2-3 weeks. Some programs make you leave and go on site. And I, like Annie, I was homeschooling our kids. And I was also prepping myself knowing that eventually all three were going to leave. And I thought, what am I going to do when they're gone? I don't want to do an empty nesting thing. I want to keep educating myself, keep learning. And so I was 100% online. I didn't go to Houston for the 3 years that I was doing the online program. I was in Virginia. But I fully believe I didn't lose out on any relationship building because their professors were always available. Annie and I have been friends for years. You start the program and you find these people to connect with. And you do see them. I've seen several people that we've graduated with. We'll meet for lunch if we happen to be in the same state or whatever. We're all in contact with each other. We have social media that we contact each other or email and other things I could talk about later. But it was the best possible solution for me. It was an amazing education. The professors are standouts in the apologetics world. The books they recommended, it worked out really well. I guess we had such a great community between the students being together and the professors who were so encouraging to keep that going that it was the perfect solution for me.
You know, one thing I've heard from students who have been at other universities who do apologetics there, and they did the program, and then he switched to ours. We don't really encourage them to switch if they're already in a program, but sometimes they just want to. And they've told me personally that the professors at HCU tend to spend much more time with the students and give them more attention and be available to them much more than those at the other universities where they were studying Christian apologetics. And they said that the books that were recommended for reading were a lot heavier. They went a lot deeper into the topic. So, I guess if you just want to get through a master's degree real quick and easily, don't come to HCU, right? But, and nice thing, if you can be there in person, there are advantages to that. But, that, like I did my PhD, the whole thing via distance. And I don't feel like I really lost anything. I was in contact with my doctoral supervisor on a regular basis through Skype back then. And there's track changes through Word document, and you're able to, give feedback that way. And then we'd meet once a year at the annual meeting of the Society of Biblical Literature. So I didn't feel like I missed out on anything. But I mean, sure, if you're going to show up for class, 2-3 times a week, there's some benefits of that. But then there's the thing that, what you can do. And it's like a lot of us, when we're doing our graduate or doctoral programs, we're just not in a position where we can go and meet, at a university a couple of times a week. I mean, we've got students, I don't know if you had them when we were doing our courses together, but, people from Germany, people from and all different countries, New Zealand and Australia and South America, Central America, who are participating in these courses along with you all. They can't come over here to the U.S. and do that. So that's pretty cool.
That is a big benefit. And I just want to mention one more benefit I discovered from doing the online program was I think of it in terms of us being a kind of diaspora, right? And so the fact that, yes, that we can talk to Riz, who's in Japan, the fact that you get that kind of cross-cultural dialogue that, enriches everything, but also we're taking what we're learning and what we're gaining from one another and embedding it in our local context. The conversations having with my community and my ability to still participate in our school co-op. And so, the fact that we are scattered not only creates that enriched conversation, it also takes what we're doing and filters it into our widespread communities, which I think is a huge benefit, not only to us as students to be able to do it, but, to be able to have that spilling over into the communities where we're located.
Now, let me ask you both a question. Andy Nardoni, you mentioned a moment ago how, Annie Crawford is, the two of you have become really good friends and stayed in touch over the years. Have you, either of you met in person? You have met each other in person. Okay. So, yep. So now one thing I have heard, but I haven't really asked students about this, there is a community of students who have been in this apologetics program at HCU, right? And you guys keep in touch. A lot of you keep in touch. Can you tell me a little about that? I've never really asked anyone about this, but I've heard about it.
Well, Annie and I both were at the very beginning with the Unexpected Journal, our quarterly journal that several of us graduates jokingly said, I think maybe was it Zach who said, we have all these great ideas and these great papers. We should publish these. And so it was kind of like throwing down the gauntlet and a challenge. And then we decided, hey, that's not a bad idea. And so an Unexpected Journal was born 7 years ago, I think. And at first, it was it 2018? Mm-hmm. It was 2018. April 2018 was our first issues. And
wow.
It's in the Wade Center. It's in the Kilns. It's all over. It's gone worldwide. And it used to be a collective of us contributing articles and maybe some new students coming on. And it's a collection of poetry, academic work, essays, some fiction. But it's expanded out since then. So now we have taken other academics in and published their work through it because now we have a professional gloss, as it were. So we have this wonderful magazine. And Zach just stepped back last year as our president, and I have tried to fill his very large shoes. And it's a challenge, but we're still going, and we are really putting out some excellent work. Dostoevsky, we have great themes, joy, apologetics, dystopia, really amazing themes. And you can go on to unexpectedjournal.com online and read all the articles for free, or you can also get a published edition. So through that, we all stayed in touch because we all were working on this project together. So we would edit each other's work, or we would suggest something, or we would yeah, I don't. Annie, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. So in many ways, the cultural apologetics track is like a C.S. Lewis degree, right? We really focus on his works, and C.S. Lewis has 2 essays called, this is going to be a roundabout answer to your question, but he has 2 essays, one called The Inner Circle, or The Inner Ring, and another Membership. And those 2 essays are a meditation on this deep desire in the human heart to be on the inside, to be, I believe ultimately because we were made to be taken up into the life of the Trinity, right? We were made for divine fellowship. So we have a deep longing to belong. And the inner ring is about the way that desire gets twisted, and we become ambitious, and we start climbing the social ladder, and we start compromising our values just to get on the inside where the successful people are. Membership is an essay about what authentic community looks like. And, Lewis writes a lot on friendship, friendship being one of the highest goods that God gives us here. And friendship, membership to an authentic community comes when we're centered around a shared love. And so my experience of the HCU community, it's been such a blessing. When I was younger, I was an inner ringer. I was a social climber. I was driven by ambition and this hunger to be on the inside. And God in his grace has broken me of that in many ways. So then when I came to HCU and re-engaging the academic world, I was a little concerned, is this going to stir up my ambition? And is this going to be a bunch of social climbers, academic climbers again? And what I've found is a place of membership, really a place of authentic community of people gathered around a love of truth, this love, belief that all truth is God's truth, and a passion to move further up and further in to the goodness, truth, and beauty of God's world so we can share it with others. And membership of those people is what I've found. Both, I'm encouraged by the professors, Dr. Lycona, Dr. Ordway, Dr. Ward, who, as we complete our degree, invite us into the fellowship of scholars and encourage us so much, as well as then all of the other students like you, Annie, that I've met who share that desire. And then when we are able to get together, it's instant, fire, instant friendship. As Lewis says, oh, you too, have a pile of books, swim in, you too, cover your Lewis books and all kinds of pencil mark. And out of that membership, out of that authentic community has poured all kinds of projects and collegial relationships, Unexpected Journal being one of the main ones. We have a Facebook group where people really do stay connected and share each other's work and share what's going on in their lives and pray for each other and encourage one another. That Facebook group has been a way we really stay connected. People will post, oh, I'm going to this conference. Are you going to be there? Let's do dinner. And then the other one I think that's emerged out of the program is the Society for Women of Letters that different women from the program we've formed in order to kind of informally continue helping other women grow in terms of the life of the mind and their ability to see how the truth of Christ connects to all truth that we find in the world. So yeah, it's been a huge blessing in my life for sure.
That's awesome. What's the URL for the journal?
An
unexpectedjournal.com.
Unexpected Journal.
And Unexpected, AUJ, as we affectionately call it.
Oh, okay.
Unexpectedjournal.com.
.com. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yep. So let me ask you, what do you guys what are you both doing with your apologetics since, when did you graduate from the program and what are you doing with it now? Annie Nardoni, why don't you start?
Let's see, I graduated December 2019, and that weekend I was asked to join the Cultivating group. So it's now called Cultivating Oaks Press, and they invited me to write for their online magazine. And so that's called cultivatingoakspress.com. They are a Christian online magazine, and I've been writing for them since beginning of 2020. I've also kept up with AUJ. We've been writing AUJ. And when my kids left, they went to their colleges, got married, and I missed teaching so much. So HSLDA, Homeschool Legal Defense Association, I contacted them and I said, I have this idea for a course that I would love to teach for you. And at the time, they didn't have anything outside of the box. It was math, science, English. And I said, I think, and it's a Christian, obviously, homeschool organization. I said, I really think you're missing out on a lot of kids who have an imaginative approach to their faith, and they're getting left behind. It can't all be STEM. And we have 3,000 years of history that you can see the thread of God woven through it. So what I would like to do is write a humanities course, starting at Stonehenge, going forward to postmodern in 32 weeks, bringing art and music and literature, all of the humanities into it, so that they can go into a museum or read a book and see the influence of God. It's like a side apologetic sneaking past those dragons of STEM classes where they say, no, you have to learn math and science. And I said, no. You're missing out on the beauty, the truth and beauty that is all over. So I wrote this curriculum, and I teach, like I said, from Stonehenge, but basically Greek, starting Greek. We don't read a lot of the longer things, but when we're comparing Greek and Jewish culture, they read a Greek myth and a Jewish myth. We look at Greek art and Jewish art. We move forward, we go through the medieval period, and we end with postmodern. So we start heavily in Greek, and we end reading C.S. Lewis's Till We Have Faces, bringing it back around. And we do a deep read of this book for 4 weeks, and all of the assignments are focused on what Lewis has pulled out and how we can see Christianity deeply embedded in this work. And at the end, they have to go back through history and tell me where it is and where is the Christianity in here and here and here. At the very end, explain that to me. Also, what happens when we pull Christianity out? When we pull God out of the perspective, starting with the Enlightenment, we start to get kind of, and then it goes forward. And by the time we get to postmodern, they understand art and culture in a deeper way. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing that I've done with my degree, is that reading all of the philosophies that we had to read showed me what to teach. So ancient, medieval, postmodern. Don't be afraid of postmodern. Man, that postmodern class that we have is key. Don't be afraid of it. Dig into it and take ownership of your faith. Especially when kids are going into college. And it was really important for me to teach kids at a high school level, because when they leave to go to college, so many of them walk away from their faith. And I want to capture their imaginations in high schools and say, look, you can't get around seeing God's work through histories. And so that's what that course was all about. And then I also teach creative writing, which I love to teach as well, so they can learn how to express themselves, find what they like to write the most, poetry, story, devotional, whatever. So those are the two courses.
You're teaching 2 courses, and you're writing for 2 journals. And there's something else I think that you've started to do fairly recently as a position, haven't you?
I lose track.
Aren't you
I
doing
write-
something with C.S. Lewis Institute?
Yes, they came back to me and asked me to be to counsel the fellows.
Yeah.
So it all came around full circle. So now I am working with new fellows coming into the C.S. Lewis Fellows Program, which is,
Awesome.
I know, the path that God lays out for us is mind blowing, and I just am in awe every day of the direction that all started so far back. But we have a timeline. We don't have blips. We have a timeline. So the timeline was my first love of C.S. Lewis Institute, HCU, teaching, and now it's going all the way back to C.S. Lewis Institute again. So,
Annie Crawford, how about you?
Yeah, somewhat similar. I teach 2 course sequences for homeschool high schoolers in the classical renewal. I teach a great text sequence, similar to what Annie's talking about, of helping students have a rigorous course in the humanities that shows them the unfolding of God's providence and story and truth through the history of the world. So that's a 3-year sequence. I don't know how you do it in 1 year, Annie, but so teaching ancient literature and thought, medieval literature and thought, and modern, postmodern literature and thought. I've also created a 6-part apologetics sequence that I teach to high schoolers. I've had a lot of success with this course. I mean, high schoolers, I love teaching high schoolers because their minds are active and they like to argue and they're trying to figure it out. And I find it so fun to feed them. And so I do.
Wait a minute. Did you say high schoolers like to argue?
Yeah.
Well, isn't that an understatement?
Yeah. And some people get frustrated with that, but it's developmentally appropriate and it's something to harness. You're right. Let's argue, and let me teach you how to argue well, and let me give you real knowledge to argue with. Right. So we do 1 semester of classical apologetics, 1 semester of a faith and science course, a media ecology course, looking at the way that different media shape the way we think and understand the world, which is really important for a digital age. I teach a C.S. Lewis and imaginative apologetics course. We do a course on sex and gender using Nancy Pearcey's Love Thy Body book. I got to study with her in the HCU program. And then a faith and work class. So really a whole scope of through high school, leading them through an understanding of how the Christian faith connects to all these essential cultural spheres. So teaching, and it does take a lot of work to teach. As I can on the side, I continue to write and speak, doing academic conferences when I can, or doing seminars for local churches, and trying to take what God has given me and pour that into both a school and a church context. And my passion, I really love to integrate education and discipleship, right? Those things have been torn apart. And I love to bring faith into the school and school into the church. So that's what I've been up to. And I felt really well prepared by the degree at HCU to do all of those things.
Well, you both keep so busy. How many kids do each of you have? 3? And how many? 3? Both you have 3. How many are at home still?
All of mine are home this summer, but perhaps not.
Yeah.
What about in the fall? Oh, okay. Gotcha. So, I'm so proud of you both, because you've just taken what you've learned and you're doing something with it, some really cool stuff with it. And I'm reminded of Jesus's parable of, the talents, that he calls one in and he gives him 5 talents, and he calls another one in and gives him 2 talents, and he calls another and gives him 1 talent. And they are judged according to what they do with what they've been given. And I look at the 2 of you and see what you're doing. And I know God must be proud, because you're taking the talents that he has given you and you're doing something with it for the kingdom. You're not just sitting on the knowledge that you've gained over the years. You're doing something with it. And gosh, I'm just proud to know both of you. I truly am. And any last words to share with our viewers?
Well, I appreciate that encouragement, because it might be somewhat my personality, but there's this feeling that it's never enough, right? So as much as I guess it sounds like I'm doing, I see so many more needs around me, right? And that reminds me of that verse that the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few. And so I would encourage those who are listening and who maybe feel a stirring of a desire to jump into this kind of study. You cannot substitute for we can always learn on our own, but when we submit ourselves to the rigor of a program, God stretches us in ways that just don't happen when we're by ourselves. And so it is so valuable to jump into a program, to submit to authority, and to let those gifted professors stretch you and critique you and really make you grow. That's been invaluable. And I would also just, anyone who might feel a stirring, have courage and take heart. Life's an adventure, and things worth doing are hard. That's what makes life great, right? So diving into graduate level work can feel hard. It is hard, but that's how we grow, and that's how we get stretched into an adventure of our lives and the ability to do those things that are truly worth doing.
That's great advice. I was thinking about, how did HCU prepare me to do all of these things? And I was breaking it down. I learned how to write. For anyone who's thinking, I got to write papers, I hadn't written a paper since 1984. My last paper was in college. I was an art major. So I was doing ceramics, painting, charcoal, and I had to write a few art history papers, but I hadn't written since 1984. So because of the brilliant teaching and critiquing of work and leadership, we had Dr. Ordway to teach us research and writing from the very beginning. I was well prepared to start writing and constantly improve. Dr. Ward taught me how to imagine and how to read a book on several different levels. Mike, you helped us research. You taught me how to really dig in and research something and look for words and look in scripture and look in a book and read your writings. And that opened the scripture up to me. That opened the Bible up. I didn't know how to do that well until I went to HCU. Exploring all of the philosophies that you read about, ancient, medieval, postmodern, all of those. And the amount of knowledge that you get, and sometimes it feels like it's coming at you fast, but it does stick. And you'll remember these books that you read. Oh, I got to go back to that book. Oh, I got to reread this book. And it becomes part of your vocabulary. Like the kids got tired of me saying Bede is my homeboy because I was constantly referring to the Venerable Bede and Boethius. And you're dropping all these names. But the cool thing is you are dropping these names with minds that are open, and you're sending them to read Boethius. And they read it and they say, I didn't know I could read this. I can read Homer. And all of these other amazing philosophers and stories from history. And Lewis said, don't read what's been interpreted. Read Socrates, read Plato. They're not that hard. And I had never been exposed to that until HCU. And the college does such a phenomenal job with giving you just the right resources and professors that, I don't know what else I can say. Other than just, there's so much to learn, and it becomes who you are And that's great because this is a world that is starved for that kind of knowledge. And
I have to add before we go a shout out to Dr. Lycona, to Mike for his class, because the way you structured your class was so practically helpful for teaching apologetics courses. I left your class with like intact lesson plans. And when I do classical apologetics, the lecture I give on differences in the Gospels is one of the students' favorite, because here I'm teaching them all this literature, and as a literature teacher, we're looking at the ways that all forms of speech use metaphor, use tropes. That's something C.S. Lewis argues, and then to help them bridge that understanding that we've developed in the realm of literature to scripture, as Leland Ryken would say, to read scripture as literature, and for them to understand that doesn't in any way threaten the veracity, the truth-bearing capacity of scripture. That's just been really helpful for the students and one of their favorite lectures every year. So I can't end our talk without giving you a shout out to
well, thanks. Annie Crawford, I heard you speak in Houston a few months ago, and you are a good speaker. If someone would like to have you speak to their group, is there a good way to contact you?
Yes. I think I have a contact form on my website, anniecrawford.net.
Okay.
And I will double check that I have that contact form now that I've said it out publicly.
Awesome. Annie Nardoni, I haven't heard you speak in person. Do you, you go and you teach, so I'm guessing you're available to speak to a group if they'd like to have you out. Is there a way for people to contact you?
I have, you could contact me through my author email, the.annie.nardoni@gmail.com. I do have a website that is getting restructured, and you can contact me. Just probably the easiest thing to do is email, because social media is kind of chaotic. So, yeah.
Awesome. I'm so proud of the two of you, proud to know you both, proud to call you sisters and colleagues in the kingdom. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you're doing for the kingdom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. It's been great.